And guys, welcome back to this Dracotail guide. Here you will learn how to play Dracotail in Master Duel, all of the different variants I will show you. There will be a deck list where I also talk about different variants that you can play, different cards that you can play in the deck, because it's very flexible. But here I will show you the combos. It is not really a heavy combo deck, it's a very easy combo, and you will basically do the same combo all the time, which I will show you here. And there are timestamps in the description below, and I will also read over every card once we see this new card, for example, this Lucias, we will read over, and then I will also go over the cards that we have not seen in the combos when we go to the deck profile, where I will also show you a list that you can play. But let's start with this most basic of basic combos, and this is basically everything that you need to understand about Dracotail. It's really not complicated. The complicated stuff in this deck is how to use your interruptions later on and when to fuse and stuff like this, but not the combo per se. So we have Dracotail, Lucias, and one random monster here. Dracotail Lucias reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Dracotail monster from your deck to your hand, so like Stratos basically. And then every basic Dracotail main monster has this effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can set one Dracotail spell trap from your deck. All of them besides the fusion monsters have this effect, very important, so we want to use them as fusion materials so we can set our Dracotail spells and traps. Let's start. We are going to normal summon, activate the effect in order to add a Dracotail 5 mana. This is the most or the strongest card in the entire deck, the card that gives you the ability to play on your opponent's turn. During the main phase, quick effect, so your main phase or to your opponent's main phase, you can discard this card for cost, so it can be called by it. Fusion summon one dragon or spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. And then once again, if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can set one Dracotail spell and trap. We have read this already. So here we are going to activate the 5 mana, and now we have 2 monsters left that we can fuse into our boss monster, you could say the Dracotail Althalion. Dracotail Althalion needs 1 Dracotail monster and 1 monster or 1+ monsters in the hand. So there always needs to be a Dracotail monster and 1 monster in the hand. The Dracotail monster can also be in the hand, but then you need another monster in the hand, obviously. If this card is fusion summoned, you can target monsters on the field and or graveyards up to the number of monsters used as material from the hand, return them to the hand. In this case we have used 1, but you can also use your entire hand if you wanted to, and then you can bounce that many monsters. You can use Dracotail Althalion as an interruption to bounce opponent stuff, but normally you will use him to get your own stuff back from the graveyard. And if 2 or more monsters are sent to the graveyard at the same time, for example in a fusion summon, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this but banish it when it leaves the field. Both Dracotail extra deck monsters, the Gulamel as well as the Althalion, have this come back from the graveyard effect. We are going to go chaining 1 Althalion, targeting our 5 mana to get it back to the hand, and then we are going to go chaining 2 Lucias, because Lucias has been used as a fusion material, so we can use the second effect here. Note that 5 mana will not be triggering here because she was being sent to the graveyard in order to fusion summon, not as a fusion material, right? So here we are going to go 1 and 2, and you always want to kind of do this. You always want to go Althalion, chaining 1, and then whatever activates in the graveyard, chaining 2, so that you can chain block your Althalion, because normally you will get multiple cards back to your hand via this Althalion, and this is just the more important effect that can be ghost belt if you don't chain block it correctly. We are going to set our Rahu Dracotail with our Lucias, and then our Althalion will get back the 5 mana to the hand. Next thing we are going to do is activate Rahu Dracotail. It says fusion summon 1 Dracotail monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, deck or field. Also for the rest of this turn you are a special summon locked into fusion monsters from the extra deck. Very important, because what you can do, for example, is you can make a play like the Seals play, but you can only make this if you have not yet activated the Rahu Dracotail. Another important thing to note here is that you can use monsters from your deck, but the Althalion as well as the Gulamel, which are your 2 only legal targets because you need to fusion summon Dracotail monsters, they say that they need at least 1 monster from the hand. So 1 monster in the hand, and also the Althalion says this. So even though you could use 2 monsters from the deck, you can't. You have to use 1 monster from the hand. In this case we have our 5 mana here. So we are activating Dracotail in order to send the 5 mana from our hand and from our deck the Dracotail Urgula to the deck in order to fusion summon our Dracotail Gulamel. So we have multiple cards that we need to read right here. Let's start with the Gulamel. It needs one Dracotail monster and one monster in your hand. When you activate a Dracotail card or effect, quick effect, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. And then this has the same clause as the Arthalion, where it can come back from the graveyard. It's important to note here that you have to directly chain this to the activation of a Dracotail card. So let's say, for example, I activate my Arthalion, chain link 1, and then obviously my opponent gets the opportunity to also activate a quick effect, right? If my opponent does not activate an effect right here, then I can chain my Gulamel to my own Arthalion. But if my opponent says, okay, I will activate this trap card that I have set here or this quick play spell, then I am not able to chain the Gulamel. So it's like Lady Labyrinth in Sofa, that you have to chain Gulamel directly to the activation of your Dracotail card or effect. And now, because we have fusion summoned with them, we have chaining 1 5 mana and chaining 2 Urgula. Remember, both have been used as fusion materials, and all of the Dracotail main monsters have the, you can set a spell trap effect, right? So we are going to go chaining 1 5 mana, chaining 2 Urgula, doesn't really matter, and going to set 2 of our traps. We have 3 traps available in theory, depending on whether we get all of them. If we don't get the Dracotail Sting, which is from the second support wave, then we only have 2 traps available, but it doesn't really make a difference here. So we've used 5 mana here, and then we also have the Urgula. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material, you can set 1 Dracotail spell trap. We know this already, but this has an additional effect. By the way, Urgula can also, once it activates this effect, destroy 1 spell trap on the field. And this is non-targeting, which is very important because it means you do not have to choose your target when activating this effect. So this will activate in the graveyard like it just did, and then afterwards, after setting, in this case, this trap here, we are then able to destroy 1 spell trap on the field, non-targeting. This also has the effect, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 spellcaster Dracotail monster in your graveyard, place this card on the bottom of the deck, and if you do, add that monster to your hand. It's very important, we always kind of want to have the 5 mana and the Urgula in rotation in our starting hand, because the Urgula will then give us back the 5 mana to the hand. You will see this in a second. We have now set Dracotail Flame and Dracotail Sting. There's a third one, Dracotail Horn, and we can simply say the Dracotail Flame is a spell negate that targets. The Dracotail Sting is choose 1 monster and or 1 spell trap in the graveyard, in either graveyard by the way, and banish them. And then we have the third trap, the Horn, which says choose 1 attack position monster and bounce it back to the hand. And if you do resolve this first effect, then you can also place 1 Dracotail card from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck and draw 1 card. So this is an interruption as well as a draw 1, which is very important because we need more monsters in our hand in order to make fusion summons happen on our opponent turn with our 5 mana here. So we have resolved this, and now we activate the Urgula, put it back onto the bottom of the deck and add the 5 mana back to our hand. And this is our combo that we can do with just the Lucias, and this is what you basically always want to achieve. Normally you want your third trap also here, but we weren't able to because we basically, we're missing the bodies, so to say. But you want your Arthalion, which is not an interruption, but you want your Arthalion used to bounce back cards from the hand. You want a Gulamel live on the field, and then you want as many traps as you can get onto your field, the Flame, the Sting, and the Horn, and you want your 5 mana back in the hand, which is the reason why we have sent this Urgula that we have now shuffled back, because obviously in your hand you have more cards and not the 1 Lucias that we started with. So now you have your 5 mana active on your opponent's turn in the main phase to fusion summon into anything. You could, for example, fusion summon into another Arthalion, bouncing cards from your opponent's field. You could fusion summon into a Chaos Starsource Dragon. You could fusion summon into Felia Regis, banishing stuff. You could fusion summon into Secretarion Dragon, locking your opponent out from activating Spellcaster and Dragon effects, or you can make Mysterion, the Dragon Crown, banishing cards from your opponent. So you have a lot of different plays that you can make on your opponent's turn, but this is basically what you want to do with every Dracotail hand, and I will show you this in another random hand in a second, where you can see that we kind of end up on the same board all the time. And just to make this clear, I am showing you another option. We have Rahu Dracotail in the hand and then 1 monster here. Let's show you how this works. It's the same as always. We go Rahu Dracotail and we want to get the Lucias to the grave because we can get it back with our Arthalion, right? We are fusing the Lucias from the deck and also our Fuva from the hand, and we are making the Arthalion. And now we can go chaining 1 Arthalion, we target our own Lucias to add it back to the hand, and we activate Lucias to set a spell trap, right? Because it has been used as a fusion material. We are setting the Keto Dracotail that we have not yet seen and adding back the Lucias to the hand. Keto Dracotail Dracotail is the most insane card in the deck, which is already at 1 in the OCG. We add one Dracotail monster from our deck to our hand. This is nice, this is a searcher, we can search any Dracotail monster. And then if our opponent controls a monster, we can also fusion summon one dragon or spellcaster monster from your exo deck using monsters from our hand or field. So this is also kind of a board breaker card when we play into a board, which makes this so strong. But on our first turn, it's only a search card. Next, we are going to go normal summon Lucias, activate Lucias' effect in order to grab 5 mana, because 5 mana is super important. We want her on the opponent's turn, we need her on our turn to fusion summon. 5 mana is really key here. And then we can also activate Key to Dracotail in order to grab the, once again, Urgula, because remember, Urgula is the monster that can get us back our 5 mana to the hand from the graveyard, which is obviously what we want. Now we activate the 5 mana here to fusion summon, and we fusion summon the Urgula and the Lucias. Obviously, Lucias has been used to set a spell trap already, so we can't once again, but we once again go into our Gula Mail, and now we can trigger our Urgula because it has been used as a fusion material to set one of our traps, in this case the Flame. I think the Swell Negate is better than Bounce and Attack Position monster and the Graveyard Remove stuff, but you obviously can decide this for yourself. And then we're activating our Urgula in order to get back the 5 mana to the hand, and you can see that we are kind of on the same end board as we were before, minus the additional trap that we had here. But once again, this is what you always want to do with Dracotail, giving you the ability to fusion summon on your opponent's turn with the 5 mana and setting up your Dracotail traps as well as your Gula Mail here. Obviously, the Arthalion is just a body, so not super important. You can also fuse him away, it doesn't really matter, but this is what you end up on. And here is Rahu Dracotail, which is worse than Lucias, but still ends up on kind of the same end board here. And now what I've done here is I have drawn a random hand just to show you how you would play this out with the same idea in mind. We have one more card that we have not yet seen, which is also from the second support wave, so we will have to see whether we get this. It's also not super important. It's Dracotail Phyrexia. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one Dracotail monster in your graveyard, except this one, special summon it, then return one monster you control to the hand. This can be nice because, for example, let's say you have a Lucias in your graveyard, the one that searches, then you could normal summon the Phyrexia, special summon the Lucias, bounce the Phyrexia, so you can do it again on the next turn, and then Lucias can search you something, right? So it's like a recursion piece that gives you a good grind game option. But this is also the card that connects the Dracotail archetype to the branded archetype, so I will talk about this in a second here when I show you the branded stuff. And then once again, if this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material, you know the stuff already, you can set one Dracotail spell trap. So in this hand here, we have an Urgula, another Urgula, and the Phyrexia, and we have Rahu. So we have one starter here, which is our Rahu. So let's start with Rahu. We activate Rahu, and then we are going to send from the deck, because once again, we want our Lucias. We have not yet normal summoned. From the deck, we use our Lucias, and from the hand, I use one Urgula and this Phyrexia here. Because remember, I can make Arthalion with as many monsters from the hand that I want. So I use these 3 here, so I can set more spell traps, right? This is the reason to fuse the Arthalion here. We go Chainlink one Arthalion. We are obviously going to target firstly our Lucias here, and then I also target the Phyrexia because I want to keep my Urgula in the graveyard, because Urgula, remember, is the card that gets me back the 5 mana later on. So I'm targeting Lucias and also my Phyrexia, and then I go Chaining 2 Lucias to set, Chaining 3 Urgula to set, and Chaining 4 Phyrexia to set. So all of them will set now. Obviously we want our K2 Dracotail, but then we can also set the traps. So we set that K2 Dracotail, then we set the Flame, and now we set the Sting, right? And Arthalion will get us back Phyrexia and Lucias. And then once again, like in the other combo, go normal summon Lucias, activate the effect in order to add, in this case, I add the pan here. This was the wrong way around. You should add the 5 mana first and then another card. So we have the Lucias here and the Key to Dracotail. Both of them can add us a Dracotail monster. Obviously, if you can resolve the Lucias, you should add the 5 mana first because she's more important, but still works, right? We have added the pan, just to show you another option. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a fuel material, you can set one Dracotail spell trap, we know this already, and then you can destroy one monster on the field, also non-targeting. So these are 2 important cards here, the Urgula that destroys a spell trap and the pan that destroys a monster. If you can, you always want to have these in the hand so you can use them as a fusion material on your opponent's turn because they have an additional interruption, the destruction interruption, right? So these are your preferred fusion summon targets for the opponent's turn because they can also destroy stuff on the opponent's field. And this also has, as well as the Urgula, an additional effect that says if a face-up fusion monster you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can place this card on the bottom of your deck, and if you do, special summon one non-fusion Dracotail monster from your graveyard. So for example, you can summon a Lucias that can then search, but you can also summon a Mululu, which is a card that we will talk about in a second when coming to the deck profile. So next we are going to activate Keto in order to grab the 5 mana. Once again, do it the other way around. First add the 5 mana with the Lucias and then add the with the Keto here. This was a middle mistake. And now we have the 5 mana that we can use to fusion summon. We activate 5 mana here in order to fusion summon with Lucias and Pan. In an optimal world, I would have liked to keep my Pan in hand because, once again, this is an interruption, destroy a monster. But I have already used the set a spell trap effect from my Phyrexia and my Urgula and my Lucias, and I want my third trap on the field. So I have to use this Pan if I want the third trap on the field. So now I'm going to fusion summon once again into the Gulamel, and Pan has not yet been used, so we can activate the Pan to set the third trap, which is the Dracotail Horn. I've talked about this. Target one attack position monster on the field, return it to the hand extra deck, then you can place one Dracotail card from your graveyard or banishment on the bottom of the deck and draw one card. Very important here, if you have the traps in the graveyard, you always want to recycle the traps with the effect of the traps, right? So if I've used my Dracotail Flame on my opponent's turn and then I also activate my Horn, then I can, as you have just read here, place one Dracotail card from graveyard or banishment on the bottom of the deck, and this should always be the trap card, because this is the way in which you can recycle your trap cards so that you can use them again on the next turn if you set them via fusion summon, right? So yeah, Pan has set here, and then obviously the last thing we are going to do, like always, activate the Urgula to get back into the hand our 5 mana. So in this full hand here, we obviously have our Bestial Magnamut, we have an Urgula that we can use as a fusion interruption to destroy a spell trap, we have the 5 mana that we can use to fuse, we have Gulamel, we have Spell Negate, we have Bounce and Attack Position monster, and we have the Sting removing a monster and or a spell trap from the graveyard. So you can see we always want to do the same thing, it just changes a bit depending on the hand that we kind of have. Alright, what I want to show you now is what you can do with the branded fusion. This only works if we get the Phyrexia, the card that you've seen in the last combo, but then you can use your branded fusion to bridge into your Dracotail stuff, and it works like this. We go activate the branded fusion in order to fusion summon into, and there are different targets here, but I'm going to fusion summon into the Albion, the Sanctifier Dragon, and we are using as fusion materials from the deck the Fallen of Albas that we play at 1 and this Dracotail Phyrexia. And the reason why this is so important is, and it only works if we get the Phyrexia, is that this is a spellcaster and a light monster, so this needs a light spellcaster monster to be fused, and for example our Albion here would also need a light monster, so this is the only Dracotail light monster, and this is why this is basically the bridge into giving us the ability to play branded. But don't get this wrong, we are not playing branded, but we are using the branded fusion to get into our Dracotail place here. Obviously we also have this Albion on the field right now that can on our opponent's turn revive our Fallen of Albas in order to make, for example, a Mirror Jade with an extra deck monster from our opponent. This is an additional interruption already, right? In the future you can also make the Albion here and then set the new branded spell, the Fallen and the Virtuous. That is an additional interruption, but we don't have this in the game yet, so it doesn't really make sense to make the Albion here. Now we can activate the Phyrexia because she was sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for our Albion here, and she can set us the Dracotail card, which is Dracotail Keto. Keto is going to add, once again, we are in the same combo now, Keto is going to add the Dracotail Lucias, then Lucias is going to add, once again, the 5 mana, you know it from here, and 5 mana uses this Fuvolos and then the Lucias in order to go into the Arthalion. And then we are going to go chaining one Arthalion, getting us back our 5 mana. Remember, we want to get back the 5 mana because her effect to set a spell trap was not yet used, whilst Lucia's effect to set a spell trap we will use now. So you always want to get back to the hand stuff that can be used as a fusion material still, and then set something. Chaining 2 Lucias in order to set the Rahu Dracotail, and then we're going to grab back the 5 mana here, which we can still use to set something. Rahu, once again you use the 5 mana and the Urgula, you know it by now, into the Gulamel, and then activate 5 mana as well as the Urgula to set 2 cards, and here you once again can decide which trap you want to set. Let's say we are setting the Flame, and let's say we are setting the Horn in this case, and then once again activate Urgula to get back the 5 mana to the hand. So this is what you want to do with this branded stuff here. Once again, this is just because you can use your branded fusion to bridge into your Dracotail place, making the deck more consistent. This is basically the entire idea. And then last but not least, we can also use Magistus cards here. I will quickly show you this. In this time, we are going to start with our Blazing Cartesia, which is a card that you can also play because she is also quick effect fusion summon into level 8 or higher, which is Arthalion. But let me show you how this would work. So let's say we have this Cartesia here. We normal summon this Cartesia, activate the effect in order to fuse into our Arthalion here. And then we are going to go chain link one Arthalion, going to get back both of these cards because we have used 2 monsters from the hand. We can get back 2 cards, and then 5 mana to set. We are going to set the Rahu Dracotail and add back Fuva and 5 mana to our hand. Next thing we are going to do is make link 1 into Artemis the Magistus Moon Maiden. So we have a Magistus monster on the field now. And now we can use 5 mana's effect to fusion summon. We fusion summon Arthalion and the Magistus into our Zorora, the Magistus Verathrakna. If you don't know what this card does, you can target one effect monster in your graveyard or your opponent's controls, equip that effect monster to this card. So you can already use this as an interruption if you go second and steal an opponent's monster, but that's not what we are going to do right here. And then when a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can send one face-up Magistus monster you control to the graveyard, negate that effect, then you can destroy 1 card. This is an additional interruption that we are making here. We are going to activate this in order to grab the Artemis, and now we have our Omni Negate life, basically, or monster effect negate. You can obviously also send him, so you don't need to equip this in order to activate his effect, but now we can send the link one, which is better. Activate Rahu Dracotail in order to use our Fuva from the hand and the Urgula from the deck, and we are going to go into our Gulamel, and then we can use our Urgula here in order to set a spell trap, and we are going to set the Ketu Dracotail, activate Ketu in order to grab our Lucias. We cannot normal summon, but we can do something else. We activate the Artemis, which can now search us a Magistus card, and we get the Crowley. And if Crowley is added to the hand, we can normal or special summon him. We can special summon him. And if you see he is normal or special summoned, he can make a fusion summon happen into a Magistus or invoked monster. So we fusion summon him and the Lucias into our Aivas, the Magistus spell spirit. And because we have used Lucias as a fusion material, we can now set one of our traps. And if you're wondering, the Aivas has, during the main phase quick effect, you can target one other face-up monster on the field, equip this card you control to it. If this card was equipped to an opponent's monster by this effect, take control of the equipped monster. Also, it cannot activate its effects. So you can activate this and steal an opponent's monster basically as an additional interruption, and then we are setting our Dracotail Flame here. And last but not least, once again, Urgula grabs us back our 5 mana, so you always want to get this 5 mana and the Urgula into rotation. I think you have seen this already, but this, for example, is something that you can do with the Magistus stuff, giving you this additional Zorora interruption, giving you this Aivas interruption, and then also having your Dracotail stuff. But in this case, we only have one trap that we have set via this combo. Now I'll show you the deck profile and the different cards that you can play. There are a lot of different variants and options that you can play, and I will show you all of them right now. Alright, and before talking about the deck list, I want to talk about the cards that we have not yet talked about in the Dracotail archetype, which is, I think, only Mululu, a very important one, by the way, we have not talked about yet. It's Dracotail Mululu, it's level 3. During the main phase quick effect, you can fusion summon one Dracotail fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. Also, you cannot special summon from the ED except fusion. So this fusion locks you, but also gives you the option to fusion summon into a Dracotail monster, and a Dracotail fusion monsters, and this is also obviously on your opponent's turn. So this is another option to start your combos, obviously, but this is also something that you can leave onto the field to basically make a fusion summon happen on the opponent's turn. So you have the 5 mana and you have your Mululu basically. And this is also a good target for Dracotail Pan's second effect, where if a face-up fusion monster you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can place this card on the bottom of your deck and special summon one non-fusion Dracotail monster from your graveyard. If you have the Mululu there, you can special summon the Mululu, and Mululu can then fusion summon. And once again, he has the same set one Dracotail spell trap effect like all the other cards. But honestly, we have gone over every other card here in the Dracotail archetype at least. Let's take a look at the extra deck before I'm talking about variants here. We have the Arthalion, we have seen this. We have the Mysterion, the Dragon Crown, a very cool support card. We have this in the game already. It needs one spellcaster and one dragon monster, cannot be used as fusion materials, loses 100 attack for each of your banished cards. If a monster uses its activated effect to special summon itself or a monster with its same original type, you can target one of those special summon monsters, banish that monster, also banish all monsters from the field with its same original type. A bit complicated, but let's say we have a Bestial Magnamut. Bestial Magnamut here, and I activate my Bestial Magnamut. This is a monster effect that special summons a monster, right? So we met this condition of the Mysterion and the Dragon Crown. Then I'm summoning my Bestial Magnamut. And then I can activate my Mysterion, targeting this Magnamoot, and then all dragons will be banished on the field. This also would work with Melis, for example. They activate in the banishment, I don't know, a Melis Dormouse. The Dormouse comes to the field, and then you can target the Dormouse with the Mysterion and banish all Cybers monsters on the field. So a very strong interruption that you can also... So let's for example, say my opponent activates Bestial Magnamoot Chainlink 1. And what I could do then is activate my Femena and make this guy here, so I can surprise my opponent with this. This is a very strong interruption if you use it correctly. Then we have the Secretarian Dragon, a very, very powerful card here in the Dracotail strategy, which is a new card from the new pack. One Dragon monster and one Spellcaster monster loses 100 attack for each banished card. When you control this Fusion Summon card, your opponent cannot activate the effect of Special Summon Dragon or Spellcaster monsters they control. This is a very strong card against Dracotail, because your opponent can then not activate a Thalion, cannot activate a Special Summon Lucias, or a Special Summon Molulu, for example. But this is especially strong against Branded, because everything in Branded, for example this Albion or this Lubedion, all of them can then not activate. So this is basically the counter card against a Branded. Dracotail has a very, very good Branded matchup. Then we have this Albion here as part of the Branded package. We have Filia Regis, a card we already have in the game. One Dragon Fusion monster plus one level 7 or higher Dragon monster. During the main phase quick effect, you can target one card your opponent controls or in the graveyard, banish it. Then if you banish the card on the field, return one Dragon monster you control to the hand. So for example this Filia Regis, or maybe, I don't know, a Molulu, or maybe an Athalion going back to your exo deck, because obviously Athalion is something that you want to have in your exo deck a lot, so you can get your resources back, right? Another very, very strong interruption, we have the Kara Star Source, which can destroy up to 2 cards if you use 2 Dragon monsters here. And then we have like support cards like the Seals and also Cross Sheep. By the way, if you want to play the Seals, which you can make via one Athalion and your Lucias here, you also need to play a Spirit with Eyes of Blue, because what you would do then is you use your Lucias, which is a Spellcaster level 4, to make this Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and then you have 2 Dragon monsters, the Spirit and the Athalion, to go into your Hieratic Seals. So in your basic combo that I've just shown you with the Lucias, you also have the option to go into this Hieratic Seals here. Remember though that if you use Rahu Dracotail or Molulu, then you can't, because then you are locked in the exo deck to Fusion Summon. And this is how a list could look like. You are noticing here that we don't play Infinite Impermanence, but we play Effect Veiler. The reason being is that we want as many monsters as we can in our hand, because what we want to draw, obviously, on our opponent's turn is 5 mana and a lot of monsters that we can use to Fusion Summon, right? An Infinite Impermanence we could not use as a Fusion material, but we can use an Effect Veiler, which we can also bounce back to our hand afterwards. Nibiru is a very strong card in this deck, and so we have a big monster lineup, and then, some interruptions here and our core. So this is kind of how it would most likely look like, especially if we get the branded stuff. If we don't get the branded stuff, then there are a lot of different options that we can play. For example, you have just seen this Cartesia. You could play Cartesia, giving you an additional option to Fusion Summon. You will also get the Cartesia back afterwards in the end phase. Cartesia is an option. We have this Light and Dark End Dragon here as an option, if you're wondering. They both basically are the same. You can banish one level 8 Dragon monster from your extra deck, special summon this card from your hand. Also, for the rest of the turn, you can only special summon Dragon monsters. And then during your main phase, you can Fusion Summon. So these two are also options that you can use to make your deck more consistent, especially if we don't get the branded stuff here. And then you can also Fusion Summon with these. Another option, Kashtira Fenrir would be an option. This is normally a side deck card, but you could play Fenrir if you want to not play, I don't know, the Nibirus, or maybe only one Nibiru. Fenrir is another option because Fenrir can search another Fenrir, and this searched Fenrir you can then use as a fusion material. You can also use him as a board breaker, so Fenrir is another strong option. In the future, we will be able to play this with K9, but not right now. You can also combine this. And then you have seen the Magistus stuff. If you want to play the Magistus package, you would play one Crowley, you would play one Zorora and triple Spenta, as well as the extra deck stuff consisting of the Zorora, of the Ivas, and of, you can also play this invoked Kaliga, which you can make with Alistair the Invoker. This guy is treated as Alistair the Invoker when fusion summoning, and a dark monster, and then you can, each player can only attempt to activate one monster effect per turn. So what you can do here is this Penta can be activated basically in order to make the Kaliga, which you can basically use to lock your opponent. This is also another option that you can use with this Magistus stuff here. But yeah, the Magistus cards will most likely be the cards that we are playing if we do not get the Phyrexia and this thing here, but we will have to see. So the Magistus cards are another option. Another option is King of the Swamp. You can play the King of the Swamp package with a normal polymerization, which then you can also go into red as Dark Dragoon if you play one Dark Magician. Also another option that you could go for. We have the Magistus stuff, and then there's also the Shadol option. So for example, you could use or play Shadol cards. Normally you would play the Shadol Beast, because if Shadol Beast is fusion summoned, you can also draw a card, which is very nice if this card goes to the graveyard, and then you can in theory make a window on your opponent's turn with 5 mana, which is pretty unfair, but you can do this. The number 38 Hope Harbinger is here because if you play this package here, both of them are level 8s, then you could, for example, and this is a dragon, which they are locking you into dragons, but then you can basically use your Athalion and then one of these guys to make, for example, a Hope Harbinger. So if you play these, you can also play these rank 8 XYZ dragon guys here. And then once again, we have this Artemis and the Spirit. I've explained to you why this is important. So depending on which version you want to play, you can, get yourself one of these cards here, minus the canine stuff. We can only do this in the future, but the strongest variant will most likely be this branded Dracotail variant if we can have the access to it. But yeah, this is how you should play the deck, or can play the deck. Hopefully this helped you. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, hitting a thumbs up and the notification bell. And guys, we will see each other in the next one.